Hey guys, it's Jack here, and thank you so much for joining us on this two-part special retrospective of Tim Burton's Batman Duology. But before we get started, a few shoutouts that help make these two-part episodes possible. First off, a major thank you to the entire cast and crew of both productions, including the wonderfully talented Amethyst Cosplay. If you guys want to go follow her work, link down below to her Instagram, Facebook, and other social media platforms. And of course, all of you on Patreon who helped fund this episode and made it possible. If you guys want to donate to the channel, just $1 or more will get you access to all of our content, as well as other special features. And as a special new addition, if you donate $100, you can get a Big Jack Films review of your choosing. We've already done one for An American Tail, so we're open to any requests. But on top of that, we got a convention coming up. If you guys want to meet us, you can check us out at Anime North at the Toronto Congress Center, July 15th to the 17th, 2022. Tickets are on sale now, link in the description below. Thank you all so much for watching, and enjoy the show. Now with that said, back to the Big Jack Cave! I gotta stop thinking there's a goddamn bat cave in my facility! Ugh. The following is a fan-based video review under fair use. Batman Returns is owned by Warner Bros. Pictures, Polygram Pictures, DC Comics, and Tim Burton. Please support the official release and streaming services.
The invasion can proceed faster. I have already ordered our allies of the Great Worlds to start up their battalions.
I couldn't do the reviews I wanted to do this year due to the virus and the current surges in our systems. Think it's worth a try trying to reach them from here? The last of the power cells. It's our only chance.
He is not to be underestimated.
Because the power cells are unlimited supplies, getting to Unit 205 is our only hope.
Actually, you might have someone who can help with that.
That's the universe codes too.
Yeah, he might be able to use technology to make replicas of the power cells to get where you need to go faster.
You're an idiot, Brad! But noble!
Got one shot at this.
Many small-time tech companies are taking advantage of a new set of open tech left over recently by Wayne Enterprises.
How long have they been reporting his absence?
Ever since the last Crook Bust.
I never said I was sorry.
For what?
It didn't work out.
You just keep smiling for me, Kay.
Any sign of him in Gotham? He knows of our plans.
It appears Mr. Hyde went rogue.
We are also following the latest of the recent disappearance of former district attorney Harvey Dent and his terrifying alter ego Two-Face.
Betsy. I know you're out there. Go figure Wayne Enterprises is having a party this time of year. Oh, hey Burton lovers! Welcome to part 2 of our retrospective of the Tim Burton Batman duology. And where we last left off here in Gotham City, we celebrated the first big-budget Hollywood adaptation of the mythical Dark Knight. And it was no doubt in anybody's mind that a sequel was inevitable. But would Tim Burton return with bigger ideas, and what villains will the Cape Crusader overcome this time? Well, let's gather around some deadly mistletoe and take a look at Tim Burton's second Batman film, and my personal favorite with 1992's Batman Returns. In this Hollywood horror sequel to the 1989 smash hit, we see Gotham City preparing for the festive season of Christmas, as the mayor welcomes the Santa Claus of the season, Max Schreck. No, not that one. Or that one. This Max Schreck, played by the ode to joy of actors' desires, Christopher Walken.
Santa Claus? Afraid not.
God damn, he can make any role so delicious. He's as good as Tim Curry, for Christ's sakes. Which makes me wonder how he would have done as Pennywise.
I could hand out more than just expensive baubles.
On second thought, I don't want to know.
Stab you in the face with a soldering knife.
But it seems Gotham has got an unwelcomed present under their tree this year, as the dreaded circus gang, ironically not led by the Joker, wreak havoc upon the Gotham streets. Well, okay, it can't be that bad. They might be looking for some last-minute holiday gifts. Dude! You just beat up Santa Claus! That's it. Yeah, call in the signal. So, of course, as the title says, Batman returns, played once again by Michael Keaton, to kick the shit out of these Dumbo dummies. Oh my god, I'll never get tired of that! He also comes across a hostage situation and saves the awkwardly shy woman named Selena Kyle, played by Michelle Pfeiffer, who turns out is Max Schreck's secretary and discovers that her boss intends to drain Gotham's power supply, giving him full control of the city. What kind of Ted Turner bullshit is that? Oh god, I hope that doesn't mean...
Captain Planet, he's our hero, gonna take pollution down to zero.
Captain Planet!
But Schreck discovers Kyle in a swamp and knocks her out the window.
You know, for a second there, you really frightened me.
Somebody once told me.
Miraculously surviving, she decides to take revenge as the rogue vigilante in BDSM cosplay, becoming the sinister and sexy Catwoman. Meanwhile, Schreck discovers the circus gang is in league with the mysterious creature of Gotham sewers as we meet the fiendishly disgusting Penguin, played by Danny DeVito, who wants to return to the surface world and become accepted in society. He joins forces with Schreck to elect himself as mayor of Gotham City, while Schreck uses him to gain more power in Gotham's business plans. But with Bruce Wayne on the case, donning the cowl of the Batman, with some new gadgets and vehicles, he plans to stop the Penguin's scheme while also forming a sensual, if not sympathetic, relationship with Catwoman. Much like the 1989 film being one of my first introductions to Batman as a kid, this sequel is one of my childhood favorites. And it scared the shit out of me more than the first film. While Batman 89 played off elements of classic Universal horror films of the 1930s when it comes to tone, Batman Returns' darker tone is much more in Tim Burton's favor. And, I gotta be honest, it's really conflicting for me to choose which Burton Batman film I like more. They're pretty much neck and neck when it comes to quality and nailing the Batman tone of my favor. But the tone is also conflicting in terms of style. If anything, I can easily say that Batman Returns is the darkest Batman film ever made. And I mean, holy shit. How this movie did not obtain an R rating back in 1992 astounds me. It's full of off-the-wall violence and action scenes, sickening sights of mental characters, and a lot of sexual suggested content. And I just love it for that. And over time has become my favorite Batman movie, and quite frankly, one of my favorite films. For me, Batman is really the only DC, if not comic book hero, you could go to really dark places with. Once again, look at the comics like The Killing Joke, or Death in the Family, or even Arkham Asylum. These are the Batman stories I always think of when I think of Batman. Now, despite this film taking no storyline from those books, in fact, a young Marlon Wayans was planned to appear as Dick Grayson before transitioning into Robin in the third film, which makes me think his family were once part of the circus gang, the film captures, if anything, the dark tone of those books alone, and in my opinion, this is not only one of the most underrated sequels of all time, but one of the greatest Christmas movies ever fucking made. I know it's summer, guys, but fuck it. We're close to Christmas in July, so it counts. Filled with a continuing evolving hero, some great atmosphere and music, and some conflicting, psychotic, and sympathetic characters. Michael Keaton once again nails it as both Bruce Wayne and Batman. You could tell from both acting, writing, and Keaton himself that he learned a lot since his victory against the Joker, as he continues to be Gotham's Dark Avenger. And surprisingly enough, he comes off as more detective-solving in this film, being one of the first to really pull that off that has since become much more of a main staple thanks to the Batman. And it's really cool to see him solve the mysteries of Gotham's underworld, and in essence is what Batman is best at. It's also suspenseful to see him in much tighter jams than the first film, especially when he's framed for murder, making the entire city turn on him, and for the most part, has to go rogue to defeat his foes. Even while subtle, it seems his relationship with Gordon has improved since the first film, despite only sharing maybe 1 or 2 scenes together.
Thanks for saving the day, Batman. I'm afraid the circus gang is back.
We'll see.
That's it? That was Batman and Nerdland's chemistry. That was just a bunch of cheap walk cycles! What a rip! Batman betrayed us!
On top of that, we see him much more conflicted in this film, with no help coming from his relationship with Selena Kyle. And by the end of it, we feel really sorry for him, but it kinda leaves off where the city still sees him as a brooding vigilante. Yeah, that whole thing about him being framed, that's never really resolved. There's an overarching storyline that Linkara brought up in his reviews with the official comic adaptations, which I'm no exception in bringing up in this review, but I'll discuss it later when we get to the flaws of this movie.
You don't really think you'll win, do you?
Things change.
His costume is also given a new, but subtle update. Whether it was to make Keaton more comfortable, or to sell a new line of action figures and merchandise, the suit feels a lot more slick and sharper than the previous bulky suit. Hell, even the emblem looks better here. The whole suit looks fantastic, and only with Keaton in there does it really pay off. In fact, I kinda like this suit more than the first one. But he's not the only one wearing black rubber spandex this time around. No, he's joined by the seductive Catwoman, and god damn! Michelle Pfeiffer fit the part perfectly. Yes, that was an intended pun. Hey, it's no better than the puns in this movie.
Just the pussy I've been looking for.
Again, how did this movie get a fucking PG-13? In fact, she wasn't the original choice in the title role. Originally, Annette Bening was cast as Catwoman in a much more revealing suit as seen in this concept art. But unfortunately, Bening had to quit the part due to an unexpected pregnancy only a week before shooting was to commence on the film. So Burton and the company, much like Vicky Vale in the first film, had to scramble to find a new actress, and much like the first, after recovering from her fall off a horse, Sean Young expressed her interest in the role after missing out as Vicky Vale, to the point of barging into the Warner Brothers studio dressed as Catwoman, begging for the role. But due to what sounds like a psychotic breakdown, Young was thrown into the pound and Michelle Pfeiffer was given the part. Now granted, she had popular work prior in the 80s with the likes of the Al Pacino remake of Scarface, it really was her performance as Catwoman that put her in the spotlight of stardom. And for a lot of preteen boys and grown-ass men back in 1992, this was a very intriguing sight to be seen.
The thought of busting Batman makes me feel all dirty.
Not only does Michelle look sexy as hell in that skin-tight suit, but her character is a seductive but tragic broken soul that, to be fair, is really sad to watch unfold. All throughout the film, she's a very quiet and tragic figure, torn between looking for someone to love and seeking revenge on those who did her wrong. And you really want to see her and Bruce get together in the end, even knowing it's not meant to be, given her psychosis and Bruce's duties as Batman. Hell, in some respects, I can imagine most people wanted to reach out and help her as much as Batman wanted to. And that shows real talent in acting for someone like Michelle Pfeiffer. While the Batman films are pretty much a villain show given the star power behind their casting, This is really the first Batman film to shine a spot of the characteristics of the villains, making them so much more three-dimensional, and only actors like Michelle Pfeiffer and Danny DeVito really showed the true colors of these iconic comic book characters. Aside from Max Schreck. He's mostly black and white here.
Power surplus, Bruce. Shame on you.
Yeah, as much as Christopher Walken is great in this movie, his character is pretty shallow when it comes to any kind of personality.
Yawn.
He wasn't in any of the comics prior to this, and I'm not sure if he's appeared in any afterwards. Hell, even Dr. Chase Meridian got to come back in the comics.
It's not working.
But to be fair, it's Christopher Walken. I can't complain. He's just having a ball as much as the rest of the audience is with his performance.
Let's make a mayor!
But the villain comes off more as a Tim Burton adaptation of the Smoggies, much less a Batman villain. And there's honestly behind-the-scenes reasons why. Originally, the character was written to be about District Attorney Harvey Dent, which was to show more of his corruption and thirst for power in destroying Gotham's underworld, as well as forming a psychotic multiple personality until after being killed by Catwoman, and at the end of the film scarring him into the iconic villain Two-Face to set up for a third film. It was one of many drafts, including an early storyline of Max Schreck being the Penguin's long-lost brother, but unfortunately that concept was also cut out as well. But if you want to see what both of these scripts would have looked like in a visual format, check out the fanscription of What If Harvey Dent was in Batman Returns. Billy D. Williams was wanting to return to the series, specifically to become Two-Face, and there's never been a clear reason why the character was dropped from the sequel altogether. Same thing with Alexander Knox.
Lieutenant, is there a 6-foot bat in Gotham City?
Maybe it was the too many villains issue, maybe it was Tim wanting to work with Walken, but either way, while Walken is entertaining as Max Schreck, it's honestly a disappointment in hindsight that Billy D. Williams got the shit end of the stick. Or in this case, the burnt end. Well, on the flip side, Billy D. Williams did return to become Two-Face, voicing him in the Lego Batman movie. So I guess that puzzle was eventually put back together. Speaking of puzzle, how about a break at McDonald's to clear our heads of this casting confusion? I heard they're selling some collector's Batman cups with a few question marks on it.
Jekyll Enigma, do you copy?
Nigma here. Remember the plan.
Sure thing. We're setting up our gateway with the boss now.
Tell him I'm doubling what he's taking out of the bank if he can lure our friend out of the shadows.
The boss has doubts, Enigma. He hasn't been seen in a while.
He'll come. Rumors are circling the city, like a pass-along riddle that a figure lurks in the shadows. Keep your eyes open. I'll have a van waiting for you at the front entrance.
Gotcha, boss. Jekyll out of the box. Heh.
You got that, Harley? Yeah. How's it play? Keep an eye on that. Get the sirens on high alert.
But aside from the appeal of the cat, she also has to chase around the bird with the sinister sewer swimmer of Gotham, with, of course, the Penguin. And despite me really liking Colin Farrell's portrayal of the iconic bird gangster of Gotham, Danny DeVito still remains the actor born to play this part. And my god does he deliver the goods, and gives his own spin on the character. In fact, it was the filmmakers and fans' first choice, with a newspaper article at the time discussing how cool it would be for Danny DeVito to play the Penguin. Luckily, Danny took on the role right away and gave a creepy and empathetic portrayal of the monstrous bird. Well, in the comics, the Penguin went from a novelty villain to a crime boss throughout his evolution. Without DeVito's portrayal, the Penguin probably wouldn't be as iconic as he is today. In fact, Danny DeVito loved playing the Penguin so much that he's even come back to write a spin-off comic book series. And his backstory here, being an orphan child raised by penguins and clowns after his parents threw him into a river, really sets up the tragic and sad misfit of the character.
I want to find out who I am by finding my parents, learning my human name.
Well, his plan, as sinister as it is, seems to be working a little bit positively, with the interference of Batman, Catwoman not falling for his advances, Schreck and the entire city turning on him.
Why is there always someone who brings eggs and tomatoes to a speech?
His character returns to his monstrous roots, seeking revenge and misery for Gotham civilians and children.
Hey, my name is not Oswald! It's Penguin! I am not a human being! I am an animal! Cold-blooded!
And honestly, I think the Joker said it best in Alan Moore's iconic comic.
All it takes is one bad day to reduce the sanest man alive to lunacy.
To me, this is one of Danny DeVito's best roles, both emotionally and physically, given he had to essentially wear a fat suit and pounds of makeup created by the brilliant mind of Stan Winston and his effects team, having worked with Tim Burton on his previous film and magnum opus Edward Scissorhands. They also created the Penguin creature effects for the film. While most of the birds were real on screen, some of the more non-trainable moments were done with little people in penguin suits, and Stan Winston's team did a wonderful job, especially given their studio was pretty much full at the time, working on Terminator 2 with James Cameron, and of course, Jurassic Park with Steven Spielberg.
What can you tell us about what you're doing for Jurassic Park?
What I can tell you that we're doing for Jurassic Park is nothing.
On top of the creative creature work, the sets and production design are once again fantastic, with the interior sets of Gotham City during the Christmas season. Having to lower the temperature of the stages to actual -degrees for both the Arctic animals and winter environments. While the first film was shot in a backlot late at nights during the summer-winter of 1988, the sets of Gotham this time were built all in the sound stages at Warner Brothers and in London, England. And maybe it's because of the more gothic aesthetic, but I kinda like this version of Gotham City a tad bit more than the first film. Not to mention the new vehicles and gadgets for Batman's arsenal. The Batmobile being the same as the first film, and given some new upgrades that are all fun to watch, including a sneaky escape mode spitting off the sides to become the Bat Missile.
Alright, now I'm a little worried.
And man, that scene is awesome. You could tell Kenner was giggling at the sight of this thing on screen, because they actually made that version of the Batmobile into a toy, and quite frankly, it's pretty damn awesome. Now, I should point out that I did grow up with a lot of these toys, and while I did eventually sell them off at garage sales, there's tons of people on YouTube to talk about these awesome toys. I'd highly recommend the Wholesome Vlog by Justin Scared on YouTube, with an hour-long childhood-esque retrospective of Batman 89 and the sheer amount of merchandise those two Burton movies pumped out. Currently, the Returns Batmobile, believe it or not, was not only built from scratch, but resides in the possession of comedian ventriloquist Jeff Dunham of all people. Funny, because it makes me think he'd be an excellent Scarface in that regard.
Oswald, if you don't make him leave, I will.
Silence! I kill you! He'd be better off controlling that Batmobile arcade machine than the Penguin has in his trailer. Which, by the way, how that didn't become an actual arcade game is anyone's guess, because I would so play that thing! Batman also gets a new set of Batarangs, one being a central plot point, and the sewer-sliding bat ski, which, while only used in the climax, is also pretty kick-ass. Hell, even the Penguin's car boat is iconic, and while silly as hell, is really funny to watch when it's on screen, especially when it blows up. Speaking of, the model work is also well conceived. While it looks a little cheaper than the first film, the models are still explosively impressive. And I mean that quite literally with the Gotham City Zoo explosion, which is great to see this kind of stuff getting blown up at a high-speed frame rate. Really damn good stuff overall. Danny Elfman, much like Batman, returns with Burton to score the sequel, and much like the film's tone, it captures a much more darker and gothic feeling to Batman that has yet to be surpassed. Again, I'm torn which films I like better. While the first film is much more Hollywood and dark, Return's score is much more creepy and haunting. You could tell from the first frame of the film that the movie will have a much more disturbing score with the introduction to the Cobblepot family. Which, by the way, the Penguin's father is played by Paul Rubin, but most people probably already know that. And when the classic theme of The Dark Knight returns, no pun intended, it brings it on with a frightening but brute force. While Elfman brings back the classic theme from the first film, he adds new themes to the story with a haunting holiday-esque tone. The Penguin's theme, as we saw, delivers a sense of dread and sympathy, much like the creature himself, and while it is terrifying, it's also really sad. But Catwoman's theme is much more tragic and vengeful, especially Pfeiffer's most iconic scene in the film, where she suffers a mental breakdown where you can really feel all her emotions build up to a massive explosion of rage and madness. Honestly, while Pfeiffer can handle that scene alone, Danny Elfman adds an extra flavor to the whole scene, making it much more terrifying to watch. However, one of my favorite tracks in the film is when the circus gang attack the city and we cut to Wayne Manor as the signal calls upon Batman once again. It's one of the best introductions to the Caped Crusader in cinema history. Oh, I get chills. Honestly, without Danny's work on both films, I don't think these movies would hold up as they do today. He's half the reason why these films have such damn good tones.
I played this stinking city like a harp from hell!
Now, despite how awesome this film is, there are a few odd moments and some little downsides that make the film a tad outdated in some respects, much like the first. For example, some odd choices for sound effects and certain props. Like this scene where Batman throws this guy off frame and the Wilhelm scream is added. Why was that so loud, considering how famous that sound effect is? In most movies from Star Wars onwards, the sound effect is mostly added in a slight background of an action scene as a little Easter egg for film buffs. But here, it's just as loud as hearing it being shot to death in New Moon. There are some other bits that are a little distracting as well, like some dodgy green screen effects, some of Gotham's architecture making no sense, and this shot of Batman ziplining into the Penguin's lair. Why does it look like his head is connected to the line like a toy, or does it have a harness attached to his belt? The shot always bugged me for some reason. In most instances, when Batman is using his grapple gun to zipline, he doesn't glide his wings while ziplining because he has to hold on to the grappling line. I just don't understand the logic behind some of these shots. Even Batman when he pulls out his giant bat wings. How is he hiding that under his suit, let alone the fucking cape? Now, it made sense in The Dark Knight because it was part of a backpack that was attached to his suit that allowed him to glide when he jumped off the building in Hong Kong, not to mention taking a jab at the fact that Michael Keaton could never turn his head in the original Batsuit.
Want to be able to turn your head. It sure made backing out of the driveway easier.
The only argument you can make is that it kinda goes with the gothic fantasy of Tim Burton's universe, but I'm sorry, this is something that even Batman's technology in this universe can't really replicate. And it feels like it was just an excuse to make a new action figure. Which is kinda funny, because Kenner never made a toy of this scene! Seriously, what the hell? You could say it's the Shadow Wing Batman, but that was just a repackaging of the 1989 figure that's meant to represent scenes like this in the original film. I guess you could say the Polar Blast Batman or the Rocket Blast Batman are meant to represent this part of the movie, but this scene wouldn't be fully realized in toy form, not until the advent of the Deluxe Attack Wing Batman and Batman Forever, which I actually did own that toy as a kid, and actually took the wings off and used it as a Batarang to replicate this scene, which is one of the coolest Batman gadget moments of all time. And again, much like the first film with the vast amount of merchandise, it gave birth to one of my favorite games on the Super Nintendo. Batman Returns, made by Konami. Let me just say off the bat, God, I gotta stop with these puns.
Eat floor. High fiber.
This game kicks ass. It's a brutal side-scroller beat-em-up that adapts the movie 100% perfectly. From the music, the colors, the tone, and even the sound effects. Despite Batman sounding less like Michael Keaton and more like Kevin Conroy. The game is just a fun ride from beginning to end, and I love the shit out of it. The fights are engaging, the gadgetry is awesome, and the boss battles are so satisfying. It's just so much fun to just punch the fuck out of people, knocking their heads into brick walls or glass windows. And with the revival of the video game industry by the 90s, Batman Returns ended up on almost every game console. Not just on Super Nintendo, but NES, Sega Genesis, Sega Game Gear, Sega CD, and even the Atari Lynx, among way too many others to count. Unfortunately, unlike the first film, there wasn't a Batman Returns arcade game, but I think the closest we got is the Super Nintendo version. Hell, these guys made the Turtles in Time arcade, and even that got imported to the Super Nintendo. But as a side note, I love Batman Returns on Super Nintendo. A childhood classic, and just a kick-ass time as a video game. But back to the movie. When the sequel was in early development after the success of the first film, Tim really didn't want to do it. In fact, in between, he made Edward Scissorhands, which I consider his magnum opus. But Warner Brothers, feeling Tim Burton had the magic touch for Batman, pretty much persuaded him in doing whatever the fuck he wanted. Essentially making it much more of a Tim Burton film, and signing a blank check in the film's budget, while they handled the marketing and merchandising deals. A decision that honestly bit them in the ass, especially when they didn't even see the final product all cut together.
I'd like to fill her void. Teach her my French flipper trick.
I mean, nowadays it's common practice for DC films to get R ratings, but back then, when kids went to see this film, buying all the merchandise, action figures, and McDonald's Happy Meals, they came out crying and straight up terrified. Myself included at a young age, viewing it on VHS, which even the cover itself scared me. A lot of it had to do with how unprepared the world was for a Batman movie on this dark scale. Scenes like the opening where the Cobblepots toss the Penguin into the sewers, Catwoman's transformation with a bunch of cats biting her fingers and having her roll her eyes, not to mention her mental breakdown, the Penguin's plot to drown children, as well as a lot of gross bits of gore and violent acts, like the Penguin biting this guy's nose off. Yeah, that totally rings Happy Meals, guys!
Straight from Gotham City to McDonald's, it's the Batmobile. One of 4 fun toys your kids get with each build your own Happy Meal you buy. Batman Happy Meal, only at McDonald's.
Not to mention, because of Catwoman's outfit and almost not safe for work ASMR dialogue,
I am Catwoman. Hear me roar.
The movie is just dripping with sexual tension that, again, for a movie aimed at kids, is definitely not appropriate. I know I grew up with this movie, I mean I saw this when I was 5 years old for fuck's sakes, but given the current culture of today's world, I don't know if this film is really appropriate for kids. Hell, my mom and I watched this during the holiday season last year, and she was so flabbergasted as to why the fuck she would show me this as a kid. Again, it was probably just due to the fact that parents groups just saw Batman as a kid's thing thanks to cartoons on the 60s TV show. And nobody knew what hit them.
I was actually a little bit scared, and I have never been scared of a movie like this before. Yeah. I came out of Terminator 2, fine.
Fuck you, you little dipshit!
I came out of Terminator 2, fine.
McDonald's not only publicly apologized, but sued Warner Brothers in a private matter for making a deal to sell Happy Meals for a film not targeting the demographic age group, and the studio needlessly panicked, eventually kicking Tim from the Bat team when plans for a third film were already in development. And to be frank, while this firing did lead to Tim Burton helping in the creation of The Nightmare Before Christmas for Disney, it honestly really sucked for the future of the franchise. In hindsight, we could have seen Billy D. Williams as Two-Face, Robin Williams as the Riddler, a Catwoman spin-off with Michelle Pfeiffer that didn't suck BDSM cat dick like the Halle Berry film, and the potential of a World's Finest movie with Michael Keaton and Christopher Reeve in their respective roles. And again, I know a lot of people complain that Batman shouldn't be straight up killing people, which, in defense of the first film, was more out of self-defense. But in this case, yeah, I can't defend this one, folks. Batman just straight up murders a lot of the Penguin's goons. From the Devil Clown, where Batman uses his turntable engine to burn him alive. Which I know is wrong, but it's so fucking cool! Or this wrestling clown that he straps a bomb to.
Jesus Christ!
While this scene alone seems to be a homage to the 1966 film where Adam West's Batman is carrying around a cartoon-looking bomb,
Some days you just can't get rid of a bomb.
this one is just way too overboard and violent in terms of the outcome. I mean, holy shit, look at Batman's grin! He's actually enjoying killing his opponents. Honestly, his words to Robin in the next film actually have some visual meaning here.
So you're willing to take a life. You make the kill, but your pain doesn't die with Harvey, it grows. Until one terrible morning you wake up and realize that revenge has become your whole life.
You can't understand. Your family wasn't killed by a maniac.
Yes, they were. We're the same.
Okay, well, despite the Schumacher era officially being out of canon, it is something that is preluded in this film. Something that a lot of people have brought up is the fact that the reason why Batman constantly continues to kill people in these two Burton movies is because, despite killing the Joker, it didn't cleanse his soul of the death of his parents. In fact, in a way, it made it worse. I mean, look at him when we first see him. He's alone, he's quiet, he's by himself in the dark, and only when the bat signal is lit does he fully emerge. And for those wondering why the hell Vicky Vale wasn't in the sequel, well, it's kinda hinted that he probably drove her away due to his dedication of becoming the Batman. He could never disassociate himself from his other half. And only through seeing what Selina Kyle and Catwoman attempt to do in seeking revenge on Max Schreck does Bruce Wayne finally see a mirror image of himself. And by the time he wants to save Catwoman, it's too late. She's already committed to the revenge and it ultimately kills her. Kind of. And for Bruce Wayne, this is not only him failing to save the woman he loves, but also looking at the potential to not be able to save himself. Yeah, sure, the Schumacher movies are no longer canon, but those elements do play off in those films, which give them more leeway into more of a positive outcome. In some cases.
I want a car. Chicks dig the car.
This is why Superman works alone.
It's funny because Tim Burton was directing Superman Lives with Nicolas Cage and doing the same weird-ass Batman Returns shit with the Man of Steel. Thank God they canceled that! Good lord, can you imagine what that crossover would have looked like?
I wish I knew.
We'll get to that sometime down the road. But yeah, the darkness of the film is a little too much for some people, but to be honest, I still really enjoy it, and I love it for that. And looking back on it, it's aged like a fine bottle of bat wine. Or in this case, fishy soil.
Cold. It's fishy soil, sir. It's supposed to be cold.
And quite frankly, we're starting to see that more and more with the likes of Joker, Matt Reeves the Batman, and even the return of Michael Keaton in the Flashpoint movie. Despite that movie being a gigantic financial disaster for Warner Brothers. The closest going back to the days of Tim Burton is the Spanish fan film trailer based on the graphic novel Arkham Asylum, A Serious House on Serious Earth by Grant Morrison.
Joker!
However, the climax for me is actually a lot more emotional due to a few factors. For one thing, it's dark and really sad for a Batman movie. All the main characters end up in this one spot. For one thing, Schreck, who seems to be the real mastermind behind all of this, gets his deserved comeuppance, and in a brutal and shocking manner. Well, I'm sure if this was Harvey Dent, he could have survived this. Oh, maybe not. That fried me. Turned me into a Halloween decoration. Even though it's Christmas. Hey, Bruce Wayne. This is how it feels to chew 5 gum. Stimulate your senses. As well, the Penguin's demise is honestly really sympathetic and depressing, especially after all he's been through, and it really captures the essence of why these movies are about the villains and the hero himself. And most of that credit goes to Danny DeVito and Danny Elfman's score. And I know a lot of people complain about the Penguin Bearer moment, but honestly, it's kind of a callback to what the Penguin said early on in the movie.
Tragic irony or poetic justice? You tell me.
However, for me, the heart and soul of the movie really does belong to both Batman and Catwoman. Their chemistry from both Keaton and Pfeiffer respectively shows the tragic relationship that could have worked if not under unfortunate circumstances. While Vicky Vale was much more of a swing than a catch for Bruce Wayne, here his relationship with Selina is much more believable, and it's really sad how things end up for both of them. Batman even goes as far as to unmask himself to show his true heart. Even though it has one of the most glaring continuity errors of cinema where his eyeliner is suddenly gone. I get the intention of showing him rip the mask off, but you couldn't go in and quickly cut to a shot of him from the back. Hell, somebody on YouTube digitally put in the makeup, and when he turns his head, the makeup is gone. That's much more believable. But that's really just a nitpick for me. Because again, the dialogue in this scene is just straight up heart-wrenching.
Selina, please.
Bruce, I would love to live with you in your castle. Forever, just like in a fairy tale.
The ending also leaves off with a sense of despair, but a shine of hope when Bruce finds a black cat out of the snowy streets of Gotham on Christmas night. It gives him something to protect, something to care for. Ultimately come out of the darkness into a bit more of a lighter hope for Gotham. Also, am I the only one who wants to see a scene of Bruce taking care of that cat? I always wondered what happened afterwards. Alfred, why did I buy this thing?
Master Bruce, you didn't buy the cat. You picked it up
you bought it!
I never remind you of your ex-girlfriend, but you need to let that go.
No, Alfred, you know what? Fine, it's fine. Ah! Alfred! This is regular Coke! What happened to the diet?
Once again, it appears we're down to our last Diet Coke.
Oh, for God's sakes! Oh, shut up! We think at this point that Catwoman is dead, but it leaves hope in the viewer and for Bruce that she's still alive, especially with his final lines in the film and Batman's overall final Christmas wish.
Merry Christmas, Mr. Wayne.
Merry Christmas, Alfred. Goodwill toward men. And women.
Now, while a great line in of its own closing the film, it somewhat adds one last shock to the audience with Catwoman surviving and looking up at the bat signal. It's a great tease, but unfortunately cost the production $250,000 to make it the 11th hour, and unfortunately, as we've seen, it didn't really pay off. While Batman Returns was a box office hit in the summer of 1992, its critical reception made it fade off rather quickly, and Warner Bros. Was concerned with their multi-million-dollar franchise and an upcoming animated series due to air in a few months, which led to Burton and the entire franchise being rebooted to a much lighter degree to please the fast food chains.
Can I persuade you to take a sandwich with you, sir?
I'll get drive-through.
But to be honest, none of that disregards the film for me in any way. I stand by that Batman Returns, while a conflicting sequel for some and myself, is my all-time favorite in the franchise. It's got a great haunting soundtrack, chilling sets and production designs, some great three-dimensional and sympathetic characters, and a tone that captures the essence of the utter disturbing and darkness of the Batman mythology perfectly. It's undoubtedly an underrated sequel and definitely deserves more attention nowadays for Batman and comic book fans. And as much as I love 89, Returns is my favorite of the duology, and I give this sequel a 9.2 out of 10. While it's tied with 1989 in terms of quality, it surpasses it very slightly by making it overall one of Tim Burton's best, a brooding holiday classic, and the darkest film in the Batman franchise. Definitely worth celebrating 30 years later. And that, my friends, was the Tim Burton Batman duology, and Returns is definitely my personal favorite and worth more attention, especially if you're a new fan of the franchise. So until the next video, like, comment, subscribe, and I will see you guys later. This is Big Jack Films, signing... Alright, come on!
That's that money. Let's go. Check the doors. Let's go. Throw the money in. Come on. Move it. Move it, you swat.
Let's all stay down. Send immediate backup. Gotham City Bank has just been robbed.
Well, fuck it. If he's not coming back, I'm gonna have to deal with these goons myself.
Boss, Force Gump here's running at flash speeds here.
So, the little pest wants to be the hero. Well, without the bats around, that will be a problem. Boys, take care of the brat!
Okay.
So, you claim to be a hero, yet you don't wear a mask.
In life, my Lon Chaney friend, we're all wearing masks.
Let me give you a little lesson in life, kid. You either die a hero, or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain! Boys, when we get back to the docks, I want this little bastard swimming with the penguins!
Boss!
That's awesome!
Of course he turns up right when I do! This time, I'm gonna turn the bat into roadkill!
Too much trouble. Oh shit! It's the Batman! Try him! I got him! Full! Fill him up with the knife!
You scratch my back? I scratch yours.
Fair enough.
One step closer, Bats, and I'll blow his brains out!
Wouldn't you rather leave that to chance?
Just like old times!
Wow, this really is like a comic book.
It is like a comic book. Shut up! You shut up! Shut up!
That makes two of us.
I thought you didn't kill people!
I only killed half of them.
Harvey Dent? The fuck?
Dent is hiding like the coward he is. I am merely his other half. Call it Two-Face. And if this city is heaven, then I'm bringing it back to hell!
This isn't the first time you've done this.
Well, I wanted to thank you for getting me out of that jam. The city's been noticeably quiet since last night, yet you still patrol. What about eating, sleeping? You won't be prepared unless you take care of yourself.
Harvey's still out there, and the jackals that accompany him. They hunt in packs at night.
Are you still concerned about that clown coming back?
Funny you should ask. Maybe I am a bit concerned. I got your message about the fuel supply you need.
Yeah, I got connections with Wayne Enterprises about their abilities to replicate rare liquid droplets. I hope your expertise matched with the formula I sent you. The Department of Metahuman Control were on me at that for months.
I had a sample made while you were snooping around last night. It will take time to replicate more now that we're on high alert here.
Yeah, that's all I need for now. With Doc out of touch, somebody had to make it. Figured you were the best. It'll give me time to send word out. Take any precautions you need, my old friend. You know the drill. Be ready for anything. Take off. Oh, and one more thing. You might want to get in touch with the League to let them know you're out of retirement.
I think they already know I'm on the case.